They had miscalculated everything. Not the tanks, not the terrain, not even the weather. What the German High Command underestimated, what they could never mathematically quantify, was the one weapon the Americans had perfected, the ability to make the impossible move. And on a warm August night in 1944, just as Germany believed the Allies were about to run dry, the ground itself began to tremble under the roar of engines they never saw coming. Generaloberst Alfred Jodl stared at the battlefield reports scattered across his desk. Fuel calculations, consumption curves, armored advance distances. All of them pointed to a single comforting truth. Patton's tanks were about to stop. An armored division advancing across France needed 150,000 gallons a day just to stay alive. Patton was nearly 400 miles from the Normandy beaches now. The numbers were ironclad. By every German metric, every doctrine, every line on every map, he should have been paralyzed within days. Hitler's generals smiled. After weeks of humiliation, they finally felt the collapse slowing. The Americans had outrun their own supply lines. No army could move faster than its rails, and Patton had left his rails hundreds of miles behind. But 125 miles to the west, the Germans had missed something. Something so absurd that when they later read the reports, some swore they had to be Allied propaganda. At 11:47 p.m., a glow appeared on the horizon. Not fire, not artillery, headlights, a river of them, stretching farther than binoculars could measure. Thousands of trucks moving in a continuous ribbon of light, engines humming like a massive metal heartbeat. This was not a convoy. This was an industrial miracle on wheels. This was the Red Ball Express. And by the time German intelligence realized what it was, it had already changed the war. Patton didn't stop. He didn't even slow down. In the next 72 hours, fueled by a logistical lifeline the Germans believed impossible, American tanks ripped through German lines with a speed Europe had never seen. 3 days after the Red Ball began, German strongpoints collapsed like wet paper. A week later, Paris was liberated. A month later, Allied boots stood on the German border. The Wehrmacht learned something that night. Something brutal, something final. Logistics is a weapon, and the Americans had just fired it. The idea behind the Red Ball Express wasn't elegant. It wasn't refined. It was raw, blunt industrial energy forged into motion. Allied commanders faced a terrifying truth in August 1944. Their army had outrun its supplies so fast that victory risked turning into a stalemate. The solution? Build 2 highways, one for loaded trucks, one for empty ones. Turn them into non-stop arteries and push them until the asphalt itself screamed. Blackout rules? Gone. Concealment? Abandoned. Trucks ran with full headlights, 5-minute intervals, 20 hours a day. The original estimate said maybe 1,000 tons could move daily. What actually happened defied military logic. The Red Ball began pumping over 12,000 tons a day, more supplies than the Wehrmacht moved on entire rail networks. At any moment, more than 5,000 trucks thundered across France, engines choking on dust, drivers running on pure adrenaline, machine oil, and blistering willpower. Mechanics worked like battlefield surgeons, swapping engines in 45 minutes, ripping apart cannibalized trucks for spare organs. Bridges blown? Bulldozers carved new roads overnight. Gridlock forming? Drivers invented their own detours, sometimes plowing through farmland to keep momentum alive. One day, traffic snarled so badly that an entire battalion of MPs formed human lanes like an assembly line. The Red Ball didn't follow order, it created its own. But the Germans were stunned by something deeper, something they never expected from an army they had dismissed. Most of the Red Ball Express, about 75% of its 23,000 men, were African American soldiers, men who back home faced segregation, discrimination, and the cruel boundaries of Jim Crow. Yet in France, they became the steel that kept Patton's armor alive. They painted slogans on their trucks: Hell on Wheels, Hitler's Hall, Panther Punchers. They drove through storms, exhaustion, mechanical failures, even enemy fire. They formed their own codes, their own rhythm, their own brotherhood. And whether Germany wanted to admit it or not, these men shattered a racist myth right on the front lines, that the American war machine was only powered by one kind of soldier. The Red Ball proved otherwise. It wasn't just fuel and ammunition rolling forward. It was a psychological earthquake. German prisoners later recalled watching the convoys pass and feeling their stomachs drop. It wasn't the trucks themselves, it was what they represented: endlessness, inexhaustibility, a supply chain so deep you couldn't measure its bottom. One German officer wrote that seeing the Red Ball was like watching a wall of steel that rebuilt itself as fast as we could break it. They tried to stop it: artillery, ambushes, air attacks. It didn't matter. Destroy 50 trucks, and 50 more arrived. Destroy 1,000, the Americans replaced them within days. Germany's industrial heart was collapsing. America's was just getting started. But the cost was brutal. Drivers went 48 to 72 hours without sleep. Some hallucinated, some crashed. Tires exploded, engines melted, transmissions cried for mercy. At times, mechanical attrition hit 30% a day. Hundreds of men died, not from bullets, but from fatigue, collisions, mechanical failures. And yet the line never stopped. Ships kept delivering trucks. Operation Pluto pumped fuel under the channel like an invisible artery. Tankers rolled forward with gasoline in the thousands of gallons. This was logistics at its rawest. Not neat, not elegant, not precise, but unstoppable. The industrial punch of the Red Ball Express reshaped the battlefield instantly. Artillery that once rationed shells now fired at will. Armored columns that should have paused for days now advanced without catching their breath. Towns the Germans thought would take weeks to seize became supply hubs overnight. Railheads leapt forward faster than the enemy could sabotage them. When a route needed extension, new express lines appeared: White Ball, Green Diamond, each built in a matter of days. The psychological impact was catastrophic for Germany. Their doctrine was built on precision and planning. The Red Ball was built on mass and momentum. Where German officers saw vulnerability, headlights shining for 20 kilometers, trucks spaced at 30-second intervals, the American solution was simple: you can't hit a target that replaces itself faster than you can destroy it. One German general admitted later that the moment he realized the Allies could move supplies at this scale was the moment he knew the war was lost. Not because of tanks, not planes, not artillery, but because of trucks, endless trucks, and the industrial empire behind them. When the war finally ended, the Red Ball Express faded from memory, but its legacy didn't. Veterans returned home with skills that helped shape America's trucking industry, interstate highway systems, and modern logistics. Militaries worldwide rewrote doctrine, mobility, redundancy, decentralized initiative. These became the new commandments of warfare. Blitzkrieg had stunned the world, but industrial logistics defeated it. And somewhere in the ruins of a collapsing Reich, the same generals who once mocked American supply lines now watched those red-marked trucks roll forward at 5-minute intervals, headlights blazing, engines roaring like prophecy. They laughed once. They never laughed again.